Now back to the basics. So this is a web development class which we left over in the last week uh, where we discussed about JavaScript stuff and all. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about first I'll talk about the Ajax. I'll just brief you people few things on this Ajax part which we left. So that was the last thing which we discussed, right? Yeah. Uh, so I would like to show you people few things here, few details. Though we did saw example of Ajax. Yeah. So mainly, first of all, when we talk about Ajax, the key role is played by this XML HTTP request object. Yes, the key role will be played by this object here. Okay, what is this XML HTTP request object? So basically, this XML HTTP request object is a JavaScript object which helps us to you know interact with the server. Okay, with the server to send the request, also to read the request, to process the request. For everything, XML HTTP request object is a key role. Um, for all your modern browsers, this is the syntax which you'll be using to create an XML HTTP request object for all your modern browsers. Okay, but when it comes to browsers which are based on older versions, I guess nowadays it's very rare that we have older version browsers, but still there are few. For such browsers, you will find that here we'll be using uh, a different approach to create this object. Okay, what is that? Just for your information, maybe. But just make sure that your browser is compatible with older versions also. Sorry, your code is compatible to older versions. You have to do this. For older versions, this is how XML HTTP request object is created. For modern browsers, for older browsers, this is the version which is okay. So just remember this. So generally, uh, when creating this XML HTTP request object, so people follow this approach. So first of all, they'll check whether it is a modern browser or an older version of browser. Okay. So if it is a modern browser, then this is how they'll create that object. Okay. Yes. So you see, when you check this property, it should be true. So if this property is true, if in window.xml HTTP request, in the window object we'll have this property XML HTTP request. In the window object, if you find this property XML HTTP request, then it indicates that your browser is a modern browser. So if it is a modern browser, this is how you will be creating the object. Else, if this property is missing, then it indicates that it's an older browser, and you'll follow the alternate approach to create that object. Okay. So next, here, in order to send the request, first of all, you'll be adding the request information. So mainly, you see what you will do here to send the request. First of all, you have to construct the request. So how will you construct the request? So basically, this is how you construct the request. After creating that XML HTTP request object, now you have to add some details to this XML HTTP request object. Okay. So what are the details which you'll be adding? You know, especially about the HTTP method. Next, the request is placed for which URL, and then you see whether it is a synchronous request or asynchronous request. So these are the details we'll be passing. We'll be adding to that XML HTTP request object, I can say, through this open method. Yes. So here, you see, this open method, first parameter for this open method is the HTTP method itself. So what is this, what is this HTTP method actually? What do people think? Yes. What is this HTTP method? HTTP method, it is actually used to specify, the client uses HTTP method to specify what type of request the client is placing. So here, as I told you people, so a client can place a request to fetch a resource from the server or to add a resource to the server. In this case, get method is used to fetch a resource, put method is used to add a resource, delete method to delete a resource from the server. Okay. Post method, it is used for both adding as well as updating the resource, I can say. Yes. So this way, you have various methods which will be used. Okay. Yes. So get to place a request for a resource. What is the resource here? The servlet. In our example, you see, in our example here, you will find that it is placing the request for that resource. Okay. What is the resource? In the username validation, to validate that username, you will find that the request was placed for that servlet. Yes. The request is actually placed for the servlet, I can say. Yes. Fine. Next, the second parameter here will be the URL. As of now, here this is the URL. Generally, you'll have URL which refers to that resource. It can be a URL which refers to a servlet, or it can be REST service, or it can be any file or any resource here. Okay. Yeah. So this way the request is placed. Now this AJAX call is placed for which resource? Always a client places a request for a resource itself, right? Yes. So next, you got the, the boolean value. You have this boolean value, which indicates whether the request is a synchronous request or asynchronous request here. So what is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous request? In this case, you see, if boolean value true is passed, then it indicates that it's a synchronous request. It indicates that it's a synchronous request. Sorry, asynchronous request. When I say asynchronous request, what does that mean? Yes.
Requests don't go to the server.
Request won't go to the server. No. Request will go to the server definitely. The client doesn't wait for the response. Yes. You see, after placing the request, you will find that here the client, it won't wait for the response in case of asynchronous call. Yeah, in case of asynchronous call, the client won't wait for the response. There won't be any page reloading, page refreshments. Okay, so it will place the request and client will do its work. So whenever the response is received, so it will be that response data will be accordingly updated here in the page. So the main specialty of your Ajax calls or asynchronous calls here, you see through Ajax what we are doing, it helps us or it gives us the ability to make asynchronous calls. It provides us the ability to make asynchronous calls. Asynchronous calls means, see, the client need not wait for the service response mainly. So behind the scenes, the client can place the request and get the response from the server and dynamically update that response in the page. Okay, yes. So this value has to be true. If it is false, then it indicates that it's a synchronous call. It is a synchronous call here. Yes. Okay, fine. So these are the details. Next, what else we have here? The response object. Mainly, you need to understand response object. And one more thing. Actually, have you noticed it? So if it is a GET request, generally, we'll be appending. This is an example, and even in our example also, we were just appending that input data as query parameters to that URL itself. You see here also. So this request which is constructed here, uh, it is placed for a ASP page. You see, some input data has to be passed. So how that input data is passed here, you know, as query parameters. So you got two query parameters. So this is how the input data is passed. So when it comes to GET request, generally in case of GET request, that input data is passed here this way as query parameters to serve. If it is post request, most of the times you'll find that here the data can be sent to the server through post method itself. Okay, through the post method you can do that. So means if it is a post request, sorry, you can send the data through send method. I'm sorry, through the send method. So for example, here this is the best example for that. You can check this. Okay, you know, if you can just keenly observe this request, you have 3 lines of code here. You have 3 lines of code. So first of all, see through that open method, yeah, you're passing the details about the HTTP method used here. It is post in this case. Next, the request is placed for which component on the server side, which component should process this request. In this case, it is specified as Ajax test ASP page. Okay, it's .NET. So next, you see whether it is a synchronous or asynchronous call. The Boolean value true indicates that it's a asynchronous call, right? Yeah. Okay. Next, you see, I have to send some form data to the server. Okay, I got some form data, and I need to send that form data to the server. So what I'll do, you see, this way we can add a request header. So request headers, basically they are used to provide additional information about the request. Request headers are used to provide additional request about the, additional information about the request. In this case, set request header method. Through this method, you can add a header to the request. You can add a header to the request through this set request header method. The first parameter which we are passing here is the content type. The first parameter is the content type. Yes. So it indicates what type of input data the client is sending to the server. The content type here, it indicates what type of input data the client is sending to the server here. Yes. Here content type, it is specified as application x www form URL encoded. What does that mean? What do you people think? What it indicates? When you use this content type, have you got any idea? So content types are defined in MIME. They are called as MIME types. What it indicates? Application X form URL encoded. Yes, it indicates that the request information, that input data is actually form data. Whenever you have to send some form data, okay, form parameters, we say form parameters. When the form is submitted, you'll have that form data, right? To send that form parameters or form data, The content type will be set to application x www form URL encoded. Yes. Okay. Fine. And after sending the content, after setting that content type, the input data, you will pass that input data here. You see, you have form parameters. I can say f name is a parameter, form parameter. Now it indicates that it's a form data. It's one of the form parameter. Input field data. F name, it has got a value Henry. Next L name, last name, phone. This is another form parameter, another input field. Yes. So this way you'll send the data here. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So through the send method also, it is possible to send that input data. So generally, if you use post method, you'll send the data, input data through the send method this way. Okay. Instead of appending it to that URL, you'll do this. So what happens? What will be the difference here if you send the post data? Sorry, if you send the data this way. Earlier, you see the data was added to the URL itself, right? But now we are passing it to the send method. Yes. Earlier send method, we didn't pass any data to the send method. Just directly we'll call send method. That's it. So will it make any difference? What do people think? Security. Mm, security. Anything else? Uh, okay. Reusability. Yeah, okay. Actually, the data, that input data which you're passing here through the send method, it won't be visible in the address bar. That input data won't be visible in the address bar. So it is more secured. The data input data will be added to the message body and it is sent to server. So whereas in case of get request, that input data which is appended to that URL will be visible in the address bar. Okay, the data is not that secure if you're passing it through the get method. So because the data is not sent to the request to the server through the message body, it will have something called as message body in the as part of the HTTP request. So this input data is added to that message body itself. Okay, in case of post method, so which is more secure, you're sending the data. I can say yes. Okay, so these are the things which you need to know when constructing the request. Okay, yes. So this way you'll pass the header details. Next, already I think one more thing. Next, we have this property. So can you people tell me what is this property? This property is part of XML HTTP request object itself. Okay, you people saw this property. What is this property? Yes, you people saw this property.
When that request receives any response.
Okay, when the request receives any response. Okay, when the request receives any response, is there anything? I guess you're incomplete still. After, okay, what else? What happens? So this property is part of XML HTTP request object itself. You'll find that this property is actually part of XML HTTP request object itself. Why did we use this property? Try to recollect. Actually, this property, yes, once again I'm repeating, it is part of your XML HTTP request object. Okay, it is part of your XML HTTP request object. So this property is actually used to register a callback function. This property, it is used to register callback function. It is used to register a callback function. So when I say callback function, what does it mean? Yes, when I say callback function, what does it mean? Callback function. One, yeah. So callback function means
Passing functions as arguments.
no. Callback function means here the function basically used to process the response data. So as I told you people, so after the client places a request, the client won't wait for the server's response, right? So instead what it does is it will simply register a callback function. So this callback function will be invoked. This callback function will be invoked once the client receives the response from the server. Okay. Once the client receives the response from the server, the callback function is invoked. So I hope you people got it. Once the client it receives the response from the server, this callback function will be invoked. So what it does, it will take the response data and it will accordingly process the response data. It will update that response data in the page. It will update that response data in the web page. That is what the callback function does. Okay. Yeah. So Just let me open our code.
Hello?
Hello, Navneet.
Yes, I'm being disconnected.
Oh yeah, I'm noticing it. I guess you got some problem with it.
Yes, my.
You see, you will find that here in line number 47, if you can check this code, yes, we are accessing that onReady state change property. We are accessing onReady state change property, which is in that XML HTTP request object. Yes, it is part of XML HTTP request object. And then what we are doing here, you see, I'm registering that function. You got a function name. What is the function name? Process request. Sorry, process response. The function name is process response. If we can check that function is defined in line number 52. The function is defined in line 52. Okay, in line 52, the function is defined. So this function name, you see, it is process response, which will be called as soon as the response is received from the client. Sorry, from the server. As soon as the response is received from the server, this function will be called. That is what happens. Okay, so just fix this in your mind. OnReady state change property is used to register a function. You see, we can define a function separately this way. Okay, a named function, and you can specify the name of the function. Just the name of the function is enough. Have you noticed it? I'm just specifying the name of the function over there. No brackets. No brackets. Okay, no brackets. Just function name. That's it. Yeah. Next, you see, this is one way of defining the function, registering callback function by separately defining the function and just specifying the function name. Or else you can directly define that function here itself in place of that name. You see, this way. This is the other way. If you can notice this code, just check this code once. You see, so this is the other way of defining the function here. Okay, so here what we are doing, we're dynamically on the fly defining a function, and that function reference is stored out there. So is there any name for this function? Do you see any name for this function? You won't find any name for this function. You see, this is actually anonymous function. So this function is nothing but anonymous function. Yes, this is a anonymous function. Yeah, anonymous function means a function without a name. A function without a name. Yes. Okay. Just that function reference, we are storing it in that property. Yes. Fine. So this is the other way of registering a callback function. Okay. Next, what else we have here? Let's check once. So this is about the requester, constructing the request and all. Next, we have few more properties here. You see, in this function, callback function, we are trying to access this ready state property and status property. Can someone tell me what this ready state property does? Can someone tell me what this ready state property does? Mm, it's not successfully got the response. Uh, it indicates that the request processing is completed. It indicates that the request processing is completed. Okay, request processing is completed. Actually, the ready state property value can be 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. We have 5 values altogether. So each value it indicates the status of that request. Okay, let's see. So 0 it indicates that the request is not initialized. For a server connection, sorry, if the ready state property is 0, the request is not initialized. If 1 server connection established, server connection is established. That means the client has established the connection with the server. Next, if it is 2, if it is 2, then it indicates that the server received the request. If it is 2, that means the client has sent the request to the server and the server, it receives that request placed by the client. Next, if it is 3, what does that means? It indicates that the server is processing the client's request. Server is actually processing the client's request. If it is 3. If it is 4, request finished and response is ready. If it is 4, the request finished and the response is ready. Request processing is finished and the response is ready. Yes. So this way, each property value, it indicates the status of that request processing, whether it is initiated, whether the client has established a connection, whether it has sent the request, whether the server is processing the request, whether the server is done processing the request. This way, you'll have this property values. You see, that is what we are checking here. That ready state property value should be 4, so which indicates that, you see, which indicates that this client, sorry, the server is done processing the request. Okay, and the response is sent. That's it. Okay. Next, then what about status here? So what the status indicates here? Okay, you see, the server is done processing the request, the response is ready, but here the response is ready means it doesn't mean that, or one more thing, if the server is done processing the request, it doesn't mean that the server has successfully processed the request. Sometimes, you know, the server, it may fail to process the request, or there can be some other issues. Okay, so here, you know, you will find that the status code will give you the details about the request status, whether it is successfully processed or whether there is any issue processing this client's request, whether, you know, if there is an issue, then what type of issue it is, what is the issue faced by the client. You have, sorry, faced by the server to process the request. What was the issue for the server to process this request? This way you'll have status codes. You'll have status codes, I can say. You see, status codes. If status code is 200, the server will send the status code 200 if the server is able to successfully process the request without any issues. If the server is able to process the request successfully without any issues, then the status code will be 200. Okay. you know, if the status code is 403, that means the client or the user is not authorized to place this request. They don't have authorization to place this request. Okay. If it is 404, that means the client placed a request for the resource. It is not available. Okay. The requested resource by the client is not available. That is what 404 means. 404 means the request, the request placed by the client cannot be processed by the server because that requested resource is not available. That is what 404 means. These are called as HTTP status codes. We call them as HTTP status codes actually. Okay, yes, they're known as HTTP status codes. There is a very big list of status codes. If you search in the Google for HTTP status codes, you'll find them. There are a lot of status codes. Okay, yes, you can check once. So we have status text also. You see, status code is a number, so which indicates the status of that message. Next, we have status text, which is a string value. It also indicates the same thing. Status code is a string. It also indicates the same thing here. Okay, yes. So that is the status code. Status text means, yes, the uh, textual representation of the status. See, OK means everything is fine. The same as 200. Not found. The same as 404 status code. Yes, that's it. Okay, fine. So always you see, once we receive the response, we have to check for this, whether the status code is 200. Only if it is 200, that means the server is able to process the request successfully. Then you can read the response data. Okay, and only you can read the response data. So here you see, how will you read the response data? In order to read the response data, you got this method. If you can check this, sorry, not method, a property itself. The response data is stored in a property. So what is that property name? Response text. Response text. Yes. What is it? Response text. So through that property, you can read the response data. If the response data which you're getting from the server, if it is XML data, then you can read the data using response XML. You have response XML also. You can check that. Yes. Yeah, response XML. Here it is response text, means text content. If you're expecting text content from the server, then you can use this property. So in where are these properties defined? Which properties? Um, Response text, status, ready state, on ready state change. Where are these properties defined actually? Yes, where are these properties? Yeah, the properties are part of your XML HTTP request object. So all these properties are part of XML HTTP request object. Yes. So the browser will add these properties, the data in the properties here. The browser will take care of adding the values to these properties here. Yes. Okay. So these are the things which you need to know to place a request, an AJAX call on the server. I can say AJAX call means asynchronous call. Yep. Anyone got any questions in this regard? Any questions? Yes. Any questions? Okay, good. So now let's move on here. Now next thing I'll talk about JSON object. Sure, Navneet. JSON object. I didn't talk about JSON, right? So JavaScript object notation. So JavaScript object notation, that is JSON. So JSON is one of the data data representation formats. This JSON. JSON is actually one of the data representation formats here. Yes. So we have an official site. We'll see. So far in Java, you will find that we used to represent the data using what was the data representation format we have used in Java? That is objects, Java objects. Okay, objects. Java objects we say, right? You know, in different applications, in different languages, the data is represented in a different way. Yes, data is represented in a different way. When it comes to Java, we have Java objects. Okay, objects. Whereas when it comes to database, how the data is represented in database as records, database records. Okay, and you have other data representation formats also. In different languages, the data is represented in a different way. Okay, in different languages, the data is actually represented in a different way. Yes. So one such data representation is JSON, I can say. One such data representation is JSON. Yes. You know, JSON is actually considered as platform independent and language independent data representation format. JSON is platform independent and language independent data representation format. Okay. Yes. But okay, you'll find that widely it is used on the UI side itself. Okay, JSON formats. So we have the official site where you'll find this JSON details. So this is official site itself, the JSON. JSON is a lightweight data interchange format. It is easy for humans to read and write. It is easy for machines to parse and generate. Here it says data interchange format. Data interchange format. So what does that mean? Data interchange. Means exchange of data. Yes. So it could be between application to application. One application can exchange the data with another application. So one application can also a client, or you see when one application is exchanging the data with another application, they can use this data representation formats. Why the JSON plays a crucial role here? There is a reason for that. You will find that here, in case of JSON, it is language independent. JSON is actually language independent here. Means it's not specific to any language. It's not specific to any language. Mainly when we talk about two applications interacting with each other, when we talk about two different applications interacting with each other, you'll find that they can be heterogeneous applications. We can't expect all the time that only Java application will be interacting with another Java application. A Java application, it could be interacting with a non-Java application, a .NET application, PHP application, or it can be Python, or it can be some other XYZ language, okay, application, XYZ language application. It can be anything. Here, you'll find that when two different applications means which are developed using two different languages, if they have to interact with each other, if they need to interact with each other, in that case, they need something in common. You see, it's like two different people talking to each other. They don't have a common language, then it could be an issue, right? Just imagine. Okay. Yes. Let's say there are two different people, and they want to interact with each other. Not protocol. Even protocol just provides you the way the client and server can come. We are talking about client and server, okay? The way they can communicate with each other, but the data formats are again important here. Okay. Yes. The data formats are also important. So you see, this is like people, two different people wants to communicate with each other and they don't have a common language. Okay. Yes. They don't have a common language to communicate. Then what happens? Communication cannot be successful, right? Here, even applications, if they want to interact with each other, why applications will interact with each other? One application might need the data which is provided by another application, or one application may need the services or the functionality which is provided by another application. So in the communication between two applications, there will be always exchange of data. You see, here, let's say a .NET application, Java application, um, always the data is represented in the Java objects format. Let's say a Python application is placing a request. if Java application written, if it provides a Java object to Python application, the data, if it sends this data as a Java object, and the Python application cannot use it. In fact, the Java object is not valid in Python at all. Java objects, they only work in Java environment, right? On JVM in Java, applications can use it. But if it is Python application, how it can understand this data representation format? It cannot. It won't be possible, right? So even the same is the case with .NET. Let's say, Java application wants to fetch some or access some data which is provided by Python. In that case, what happens? Sorry, yeah, provided by Python. Python may return the data in a different format. Okay, so which your .NET application cannot understand. Yes, it's possible, right? So there are obligations here. So they need something in common, a data representation format, okay, which can be used, which is understood by both the parties. A common language or data representation format is needed. That is where the JSON XML comes into the picture. Both XML and JSON, they'll help applications, heterogeneous applications, to communicate with each other, because each application is developed using a particular language where the data is represented in a particular format. And this language application cannot, this language application, particular language application, it cannot send the data which is in a specific format, which is specific to that language, to another application which is built using different language. Yeah, that's the problem, right? So hopefully people got it. So this is where JSON comes into the picture, JSON or XML. So JSON, any JSON data, you'll find that any language application can understand JSON. Any language application. So JSON is a standard data representation format, I can say, which can be JSON data can be processed by any applications, any language applications. Almost every language supports JSON, I can say, because it's very simple and straightforward format here. Okay. You see, it says JSON is lightweight data representation format, data interchange format. You can say representation format also. It is easy to humans to read. Even we people can easily read it and write it. Okay, and it is easy for the machines to parse and generate. Yes, even your machines can easily parse this data and generate this data. Yes, JSON data. It won't be that difficult. So when we talk about JSON, we have two data representation formats in JSON. Okay, so we say JSON is built on two structures. What are they? One is JSON object, and the other one is JSON array. Okay. Yes, JSON object and JSON array. So how this JSON object looks like? How the JSON object it looks like? Let's see. You see, an object is an unordered set of name value pairs. I'm talking about JSON object. Okay. An object begins with left curly brackets and ends with right curly brackets. Each name is followed by colon, and the name value pairs are separated by comma. Yes. So this is the description of a JSON object. Let's take this example. Let's say, okay, now you know what? This is example of JSON object, I can say. This is how it looks like. Always a JSON object, it starts with left curly brackets and ends with right curly brackets. In the JSON object, you'll have name value pairs. In this case, we got how many name value pairs?
3.
You got 3 name value pairs. Yes. You see, each name and value, this name and value are separated by colon. In turn, this name value pairs, they're separated with comma again. Yes. You have 3 name value pairs. How this 3 name value pairs are separated here by comma. So comma is used. So this is how a JSON object looks like. This is how a JSON object looks like. Yes. Okay. Have you noticed it? Okay. Generally we use double quotes. Just a second. Double quotes and single quotes both will work. You will find that uh, for this ID value, say ID is 111. Let's say these are some customer details. You got some customer details here. So customer ID is 111. Customer name is Rachel. And email ID is rachel@gmail.com. Right? Yes. Now these are the details of a person. Here the ID property value is 111, which is a number. Because the ID property value is number, we don't use double quotes. For numbers, we don't, numbers and boolean values, we don't use double quotes. Okay? For numbers and boolean values, we don't use double quotes. For strings, for text, for dates, we use double quotes. Okay? Yes. Just remember this point. For numbers, double quotes are not used. Only for strings, text content, and dates, double quotes are used. Yeah. Next, you see, you'll have a JSON array. Let's see a JSON array, how it looks like. And we have some more details about this. So generally, a JSON object is a collection of name value pairs. Okay, another description about JSON object. It's a collection of name value pairs. Okay, yeah. Next, we have JSON array. You see, a JSON array is a ordered list of values. They can be simple values or JSON objects. In the JSON array, you can have JSON objects. In most languages, this is realized as an array, vector, list, or a sequence. You can think of it as an array or a vector. How the syntax of JSON object looks like? Let's check this once. Okay. You see, an array begins with left brackets, angular brackets will be there here. Array here, it begins with left brackets, ends with right brackets, angular brackets, and values are separated by comma. Yes, the values, or you can say elements, they're separated by comma here. So example of a JSON array. So it can be as simple as this. Now this is a JSON array with values, simple elements. Or a JSON array, in a JSON array, it can be collection of JSON objects in turn again, something like this. So you see, in this JSON array, you got how many elements? What do you people think? So we have 3 elements. Okay. You see, in this JSON array, we got 3 JSON objects. Okay. Yeah. This is how the structure of a JSON array looks like. You see, that angular brackets, the angular brackets here, it's important. I'll show you some more examples here. Yeah. Have you noticed it? This is a JSON object actually, if you can check this. This is a JSON object. You've got 3 name value pairs, a key value pairs here. You see, the property with the name cards, the property with the name cards, in turn, it is an array here. It holds a reference to the array, right? Yes. Yeah, this way, you see, in a JSON object again, you can have a JSON array. In the JSON object, you can have JSON array. Yes, it is very much possible. Okay. In a JSON object, you can have JSON array.
Mahesh,
Yes.
I got it out. Like, uh, Here for the key thing also, for the name and age also, they are they are enclosed within
Double brackets. Yeah.
double
Yes.
bracket. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
double
Not a problem. Sorry. Double quotes. I'm sorry.
double
Yeah.
quotes, yeah.
Yes. Yes. You will find it. Yeah. This is also a common thing. Mostly we use double quotes.
So
Okay.
even without that, will it work?
Yeah. Will it work? Yes, it will work. But generally, practices they'll use double quotes for the names and names also. Okay.
Okay, okay,
Yeah. But when it comes to values, you need to remember that. Yeah, for numbers, you should not use any double quotes. For strings, for text content, you use double quotes. Okay. For text and
okay.
dates. Yeah. Still, anyone got any questions? Okay. Good. So that's all for today. I'll stop it here. Again, throughout this week, there won't be any special class for this web application development. Again, over the weekend, I'll plan it. So meanwhile, throughout the weekdays, please attend your regular classes at your regular times. Okay, using your regular links. Yes, that's all for today. Okay. So from tomorrow onwards, you have your class at your regular times. Thank you all. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mukesh.
Thank you.